I was reading Ali Abdal's book, Feel Good Productivity, and I stumbled across an interesting concept called the Batman experiment. It's basically about creating an alter ego in which you step whenever you face scary life situations. So, for example, let's say you have to do some public speaking, and you're afraid of public speaking, you're not very good at it. Well, then you can tell yourself, I'm going to step into the persona of Steve Jobs now. And Steve Jobs doesn't fear public speaking anymore. Steve Jobs doesn't really care about what other people think of him. He's a very composed and charismatic public speaker, so I can do that myself. Now, in a way, that's a fake it till you make it approach, so I don't really recommend it on the long term, but on the short term, it's a great opportunity. But think about it, why does it work so well? You might say that it transfers some of that character's traits into your own personality, but I don't really believe that's the case. Instead, in my personal experience with this practice, I realized it does two key things for you. The first one is to give yourself permission to show your version of that charisma, of that trait. So, for example, you show your version of being a composed and charismatic public speaker, because I believe you have that by default. You were born that way, it's nothing special. It's just being yourself. And when you step into that persona, that gives you permission to be yourself and to not fear what other people think of you, which is actually the second point I wanted to make. Disregarding criticism. When you step into that persona, you use it as a shield. And you don't fear criticism, you don't fear other people's opinions anymore, because you realize they are not directed to the real you, but you're just acting. They are directed to that shield. People only see the shield. So it's very powerful. Now, why are you scared to show those traits by default, without any roleplay? Why are you scared of showing your greatest strengths and the possibility of other people rejecting and judging who you really are? Back in high school, I used to mold my personality in accordance to the one of my favorite character from a certain TV show I was watching at the time. And in a way that was related to this Batman experiment I talked about. It used to make me feel more secure in my behaviors because I had that shield, right? But on the long term, it had detrimental results. It did me more harm than good because I showed incongruent behavior over a longer time frame. I used to confuse people with this. People didn't really know who they're talking to, which TV show character they're talking to at that time. But you can use it better than me. So the next time you find yourself in a stressful social situation, let's say, pick an alter ego to step into. Embrace that character and just jump into it. Whether it's approaching a stranger, maybe talking to some friends you feel social anxiety around, or maybe even a small degree of public speaking. Just pick that character and step into it, and you'll see how less scary that is, because the pressure is gone. The pressure is on the shield, not on you anymore. And then when you go home, you can analyze your inner world from that experience in comparison to your default inner world and inner monologues. You can compare those thinking processes and you will come up with some very, very valuable data, and you can work on that. You can understand yourself better and you can make progress in your flaws. It's an interesting debate, but you are currently hiding your authentic self. You are hiding parts of you in the hopes of social acceptance. You know that already, don't you? You can name a few traits that if you were to show to the world, you would feel too rejected, so it's just unacceptable. So you are inauthentic. So you are putting a persona up every single time. But why do you still feel the social pressure then? Because when you intentionally put that persona, that Steve Jobs Batman persona up, you don't feel the pressure anymore. And you're inauthentic as well. But then why do you feel the pressure when you are inauthentic in this other way, in your default way? Well, it's because when you step into that persona, you play to win. And in your default state, you play not to lose. That's the answer. In your normal state, your goal is to not be judged, to not be rejected. But when you step into the persona, your goal is to have a nice social interaction. So you don't care anymore about being judged and stuff like that. You only look forward, you don't look backwards. But in your default state, you are always looking over your shoulder. But this is the ideal state, the one in which you only look forward. And you don't have that fear, that anchor dragging you all the time. The goal is to embrace your authentic tendencies and to stop fearing judgment, to stop fearing other people's opinions. Because the other people's opinions and judgments just become data, and that data cannot influence your mood and behavior unless you want it to influence it. You will only reach that state once you start honoring your authentic self more, raising your level of self esteem, and destroying all those limiting beliefs, those toxic beliefs you have. So start being yourself.